This next book, they wrote the book Game Change, which was the definitive biography account of the 2008 presidential election. Mark Halperin and John Heilemann are back for their next look at 2012's campaign. It's called Double Down, Game Change 2012. We all know that Game Change was optioned into an HBO movie. So has this one. And we're going to talk with Mark Halperin, one of the two co-owners or co-authors of this book that I have been waiting patiently, matter of fact, dreaming about sometimes until this book shows up. It's must-reading. The book is called Double Down, and one of the co-authors, Mark Halperin, is with us. Mark, thank you very much for joining us this morning in St. Louis.
McGraw, great to talk to you. Thanks.
I've been wanting to ask you this question since election night. Did President Obama win the race, or did Mitt Romney and the Republicans lose it?
Awesome question. Always with these things, it's a little bit of both. But I think the president, if people read Double Down, they'll see a lot of the errors that Governor Romney made were not unforced errors, but they were forced errors by the president and his team, who very aggressively said about a year before Election Day, look, we probably can't win this defending our record. We're going to try to win this going after Governor Romney. And they are experts, the president and his team, experts at kind of the psychological warfare that I think put Mitt Romney in again, in a lot of the weak moments, not by accident, but by actions by the president, some behind the scenes that we reveal for the first time in Double Down.
All right, let's get to some of the big ones. The 47% comment that was made in private, even though that was released, through some private busboy who was filming it that night. Romney's never responded correctly to that. He changed his mind 4 times after that comment.
McGraw, great example. We show sort of what happened to Governor Romney that day, in which he had a really busy and long day. He was exhausted by the time he got to that late night fundraiser in Florida. He made the mistake, and then when it was revealed months later, he was extraordinarily passive. One of the things I think conservatives, when they read Double Down, will take away from it is, if you want to beat an incumbent president, you need an aggressive candidate, an unambivalent candidate. And Governor Romney, in the case of the 47%, was extraordinarily passive. He did not sort of say, I'm going to solve this, I'm going to give a big speech, or I'm going to give a big interview, or I'm going to write something and explain myself. And that passivity extended not just to that big moment, but to many others in which, again, I think conservatives looking for a candidate in 2016 are going to say, one thing we need different maybe is a guy or a gal who will aggressively fight back when they're in a tough spot.
To the normal rank-and-file country club Republican, they didn't have any other choice. It was Mitt Romney and a bunch of crazies.
Well, one of the things that we show in the book is some of the other people, the more establishment kind of country club figures, chose not to run. People like Jeb Bush, Mitch Daniels, former governor of Indiana, Haley Barbour, the former governor of Mississippi. A bunch of these other people took a look at it and for various reasons decided not to run, in part because Mitt Romney had run before, was a formidable fundraiser, but also just kind of the quirks of their own lives, where they were with their kids, where they were with their own personal ambition. And again, if you're not determined enough to get in the race with decisiveness, it's probably hard to take anybody else on. But as you point out, the rest of the field was not able to compete for that sort of mainstream part of the Republican Party, that centrist part of the party, which traditionally and historically has produced the nominee. And Governor Romney, I won't say he won by default, but he certainly did not have the kind of challenge that a lot of people expected.
This is must-reading. The book is called Double Down. Mark Halperin and John Heilemann wrote the book Game Change in 2000, and I guess that came out in 2009. Now, Double Down is their look at the 2012 campaign. Did it really come down to Chris Christie's weight as the reason why he wasn't picked as vice president?
It wasn't his weight, although they did have concerns, the people who were looking at him when Governor Romney asked them to look at Governor Christie's background. They did have concerns about his medical past and whether they were getting all the information they needed to make an informed choice there. But there were lots of other questions about his background in New Jersey. You think about somebody get elected governor in New Jersey, pretty tough state. You figure they're going to be scrutinized. But think about Bill Clinton, ran for governor of Arkansas, a very tough political state. No one ever uncovered Whitewater and all the other things that came out when he ran for president and was president. So Chris Christie had a bunch of stuff in his background. For instance, at one point he was a lobbyist. Most people don't know he worked as a lobbyist before he was in politics. And at that point, amongst his clients, a securities organization that was headed by Bernie Madoff. That's the kind of thing that in a 30-second ad can be devastating. And Governor Romney and his background checkers, his vetting team, said, you know what, there's a lot of strengths to Chris Christie. He might be able to help us to go sort of toe-to-toe with the president, but the background stuff was just too heavy a burden in the end for Governor Romney, and he decided he'd look elsewhere, pick Paul Ryan, of course.
I think the parlor game at that time was Rob Portman. He needed Ohio to win. Why wouldn't he pick somebody who's actually won a state before? Why did he go with Paul Ryan?
Well, I thought he would pick Portman all along, and we write in the book for the first time about how Rob Portman saw this process. Portman was reluctant. Of the 5 people Governor Romney asked to be considered, Portman was kind of in a funny position. He was the only one who thought he would be picked or had a good chance to be picked, but he also was the one reluctant to have his background looked into because of his son. His son has since come out publicly as being gay. He's a student at Yale. But at the time, that was not public. And Rob Portman was struggling with what he should do about his own position on whether gay marriage should be legal in the United States. So Portman didn't want to have his background checked. And so for a while, he told Governor Romney, no, I don't want to be included in this process. He then changed his mind for some pretty complicated and interesting reasons that people can read about in Double Down. But in the end, Governor Romney, I think, thought that Senator Portman was not the kind of exciting pick that he wanted, someone who would energize the party, maybe energize the country. My sense is that that's what it came down to in terms of Ryan versus Portman.
The book is called Double Down, must reading. Mark Halperin, our guest for a couple of more minutes. You also reveal in Double Down, with his chock full of great tidbits, how close was President Obama to taking Vice President Joe Biden off the ticket and putting Hillary Clinton on the ticket?
Well, a couple of things there. This happened in the fall of 2011. The president was kind of at his political low point. His aides were worried about whether he could get reelected, and they were turning increasingly to the Clintons for help because Bill Clinton was seen at that point as someone who wasn't close to President Obama, but whose help they would need in 2012. The president's team decided we got to consider everything under the sun to see if we can turn things around. One thing they did was some polling, some focus group work to say if we made it the ticket Obama-Hillary Clinton as opposed to Obama-Biden, would that help a lot? They looked at it. They discovered that Hillary Clinton was not that big a boost, and so they didn't go in that direction, obviously. But just the fact that they looked at it, someone who was as loyal and hardworking as Joe Biden, they were willing to consider at least dumping him off the ticket. This was something rumored for a long time. In Double Down, we report for the first time why and how they looked at the Hillary Clinton option.
The perception is that Obama's campaign was a smooth-running machine, and that was far from the truth, wasn't it?
It was far from the truth. You know, the president likes to go by live out the nickname No Drama Obama, but we report in the book all the different ways in which this campaign was different than the first one, the complexity of running not just from the White House, but with the record of his first term. And the President Obama people will read about in Double Down is a lot different than the public image in terms of his private focus, his relationship with both his White House staff as well as his campaign team, and the role that the First Lady, Michelle Obama, played different than in his first campaign when she was ambivalent about his running the first time. This time she thought everything's on the line. If we don't win re-election, the legacy will be undone. And so she gets involved at key moments to try to help her man win back the White House.
President Clinton's speech at the convention has to be considered one of the greatest political speeches in not just in recent memory, but when they stack up political speeches. And then you reveal in Double Down that Obama really got tired of Clinton and sort of walked away from a golf game with him.
He did. You know, in this book, kind of one of the main sort of storylines is what ends up being kind of a love story, in effect, between Bill Clinton and Barack Obama. Everybody remembers in 2008 all the political tension between those two guys. For the first few years of the president's time in office, President Obama, he didn't feel he needed Bill Clinton. He didn't reach out to him. But as I said, by the fall of 2011, the president says, you know what, I need Bill Clinton involved. And so the courtship of Bill Clinton begins. They start out with a golf game. Bill Clinton plays golf with a different style than Barack Obama. He's in no rush to get up and down the course. And so by the time they ran out of time, they hadn't played 18. President Obama came off the course, and one of his aides asked him how did it go. He said, I like Bill Clinton in doses. Bill Clinton talks a lot. He likes to, kind of maybe, I would say, waste time, but use the time in a more casual way. So it took some accommodation. But by the time we get to the summer of 2012 at the convention, not only is Bill Clinton appearing in TV ads for Barack Obama, but he's testifying, as you said, in one of the best speeches probably we've ever seen, and one that clearly turned things around. Even Governor Romney's pollster said the impact that Bill Clinton's speech at the convention had was monumental and turned the country's view around, not just of the President Obama, but sort of the right track, wrong track, how people were feeling about the country in general. Just a huge moment. And again, not an accident. Bill Clinton has an expression. He says, it's like a turtle on a fence. If you see a turtle on a fence post, you know it didn't get there by itself. Bill Clinton ended up at that convention after a concerted effort by Barack Obama to do something he doesn't normally do. He basically said, in effect, I need help. I need Bill Clinton's help. And he went about courting him from that golf game, which was not the most auspicious beginning, to other things they did together in early 2012 that ended up making them a political partnership. And on election night, Bill Clinton, or Barack Obama, gets his concession call from Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney calls and congratulates him. The very first thing Barack Obama did after that call was say to his campaign manager, get me Bill on the phone. Called Bill Clinton and thanked him for all his help. Didn't call Joe Biden. Didn't call any of his other political allies. Called Bill Clinton.
The book is Double Down, must read, Game Change 2012. Mark Halperin, thank you very much for the time this morning.
McGraw, thanks so much.
You got it. 6:30 here on the Big 550 KTR.